The planet Velantria glittered like a jewel in the darkness of space. Its cities floated above oceans of silver light, and towers rose high enough to touch the clouds. Every citizen of Velantria lived in comfort, for it was the richest world in the Orion Belt. But among all its wealth and splendor, one young woman looked out from her palace window and felt nothing but emptiness. Her name was Princess Lyra Valen, heir to the Velantrian throne. She was admired for her beauty, intelligence, and grace. Her long silver hair reflected the glow of the twin suns, and her eyes shimmered like starlight. But behind those perfect features, her heart was restless. From her golden balcony, Lyra watched the crowds below, workers, merchants, travelers from other worlds. They all bowed when they saw her. No one dared to speak freely, no one dared to be honest. Everyone treated her with kindness, but it was a kindness built on fear and duty, not on care or sincerity. Her father, Emperor Kalis, ruled with a calm but distant heart. He believed kindness was weakness, that only power could maintain peace. He told her, "Respect is bought with riches and command, not feelings. Love is an illusion the poor use to survive," but Lyra did not believe that. Deep in her soul, she wanted to know if true kindness existed, a kindness that came not from power or fear, but from compassion. So one night she made a decision that would change her life forever. Lyra disguised herself as a beggar girl. She took an old brown cloak from the palace storage, smeared a bit of dust on her face, and hid her silver hair under a hood. She left her palace in the dark, taking only a small crystal pendant from her mother, the only thing of true sentimental value she owned. When she stepped into the lower districts of Velantria, it was like walking into another world. The glowing towers faded behind her, replaced by broken buildings and flickering street lamps. The air smelled of rust and smoke. Robots hummed quietly, repairing walls that would break again within days. The poor of Velantria lived in silence, their eyes downcast, their hands tired. Lyra's heart tightened as she walked through the narrow streets. She had never seen her people this close before. She tried speaking to them. "Hello?" she said softly to an older woman sitting beside a food stall. "Do you have water to share?" The woman looked up, startled. "Go away, girl. I have nothing." "Not even for myself." Lyra nodded quietly and moved on. Hours passed. She met cold stares, suspicion, and fear. Some ignored her completely. Some whispered behind her back, calling her a thief. No one offered her a word of warmth. For the first time, Lyra felt truly alone. By midnight, she was sitting under a metallic archway, her cloak soaked by the night rain. She clutched her pendant and whispered to herself, "Maybe Father was right. Maybe kindness doesn't exist." That was when she heard a voice. "You shouldn't sit there, miss. The drainage leaks acid when the rain gets strong." Lyra looked up and saw a young man standing near her. He was clearly not from Velantria. His features were different, his eyes dark and human, his clothes plain but clean. He carried a small metal umbrella and wore a patch on his jacket that read, "Earth Colonies Maintenance Crew." She blinked. "You're a human?" He smiled slightly. "Yeah, name's Ethan Reeve. We're here for repair duty on the outer city grid." "You okay?" I'm fine," she lied. Her voice trembled. "Just resting." He didn't believe her. "You look half frozen." "Come on, I know a place where you can warm up." "I promise I'm not dangerous," Lyra hesitated. All her life she had been told never to trust off-worlders, especially humans. The Velantrians considered them primitive and emotional, but something in Ethan's eyes was different. They weren't cold or calculating, they were kind, so she nodded. Ethan led her through a narrow tunnel to a small repair shelter lit by a single lamp. The air smelled faintly of metal oil and tea. He handed her a steaming cup. "It's synth chai," he said with a grin. "Not great, but it's warm." Lyra took it carefully. The warmth traveled down her throat and she couldn't help but smile. "Thank you," she whispered. He shrugged. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing to her. No one had spoken to her like that in years. Not out of duty, not out of fear. He didn't know who she was. To him, she was just a stranger in need. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain tapping against the metal roof. Finally, Ethan said, "You from around here?" "You don't talk like a local." Lyra panicked slightly but kept her composure. "I used to live near the upper levels," she said vaguely. "But I lost everything," he nodded slowly. "I'm sorry. Happens to a lot of good people." The world up there doesn't care much for the ones down here. His words hit her hard. She wanted to defend her people, to say her father wasn't heartless, that her world cared. But she couldn't, because deep down she knew he was right. "Why did you help me?" she asked suddenly. "You don't even know me." Ethan smiled faintly. "Because you looked like you needed it. And because kindness doesn't need a reason." Lyra stared at him. The simplicity of his words felt like a light in the darkness. Hours passed as they talked. He told her about Earth, how it was small and imperfect but full of life and heart. He said that on Earth people helped each other not because of rank or wealth, but because they understood what struggle felt like. Lyra listened closely. His words painted a picture of something she'd never truly seen, a world where empathy mattered more than luxury. When dawn began to rise, she realized she hadn't felt this alive in years. Ethan stood, stretching. "I should get back to work. They'll notice if I'm gone too long." "You gonna be okay?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, thank you. For everything." He smiled again and turned to leave, then paused. "Hey, what's your name?" Lyra hesitated. She couldn't reveal who she was, not yet. "Lyra?" she said softly, changing one letter of her real name. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." He waved and walked away, disappearing into the morning mist. As she watched him go, Lyra touched her pendant again. Her heart was full of a feeling she couldn't name. That night, she had seen cruelty, fear, and indifference, but in one human, she had found what she was looking for all along: genuine kindness. She whispered to herself, "Perhaps my father is wrong. Perhaps love and compassion are not illusions." And for the first time in her life, the princess in rags smiled, not as royalty, but as someone who had truly been seen. The next morning, the streets of the lower city were quieter, bathed in the soft glow of Volantria's twin suns. Princess Lyra, still dressed in her beggar's cloak, returned to the same alleys where she had first met Ethan. She moved cautiously, careful not to be recognized by anyone from her world. Her heart was full of hope, yet shadowed by fear. She wanted to see him again, the human who had treated her with true kindness. The city had a rhythm she had never noticed before: merchants shouting their wares, children laughing as they played on broken hover platforms, and street robots carefully maintaining the worn infrastructure. Among all the chaos, there was honesty in every interaction. People didn't hide behind titles or appearances. That simplicity fascinated her. Lyra wandered until she found the repair shelter. She expected it to be empty. A human like Ethan couldn't have stayed too long away from work. But she saw him immediately, crouched over a hover engine, his hands moving skillfully as sparks danced around the metal parts. He looked up as she approached. "Back so soon?" he asked, wiping grease from his hands with a cloth. I wanted to thank you again," Lyra said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. "No need, but you're welcome." She hesitated, then decided to stay. The conversation flowed easily, as if they had known each other longer than a single night. Ethan told her more about his life, how humans traveled across stars to find work, how they built homes on distant planets despite hardships, and how they always looked out for one another. Lyra listened, fascinated. Every word made her admire him more. She had grown up surrounded by luxury, but she had never experienced this kind of resilient spirit. "Why are humans so kind?" she asked finally. Ethan chuckled. "We're not always kind. We just try to help when we can. Life is harder that way. You learn to care about others or you end up alone." Lyra thought about her own world. In Volantria, people followed rules, but there was no warmth beneath the surface. Her people feared loss, not pain. They obeyed, but they rarely cared. She realized she had been searching for something her entire life. Not wealth, not luxury, not admiration, but a heart that cared without expectation. Over the next few days, Lyra visited Ethan again and again. Each time he treated her as an equal, never asking for her past or her title. In return, she began to share small details about herself, her love for the stars, her fascination with machines, and the quiet loneliness of her life in the palace. Ethan listened carefully, always kind, always patient. In his presence, she felt safe, free from the burdens of royalty, but secrets are hard to hide. The more she spent time with Ethan, the more she worried about what would happen if anyone discovered her true identity. The palace guards had been trained to find the princess at any hint of danger, and Velantria was full of spies who might see her wandering the streets in disguise. One evening, as they repaired a faulty hover engine together, Lyra's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden noise outside the shelter. Footsteps echoed sharply in the metallic alley. She froze. "It's probably just someone passing by," Ethan said, noticing her tension. But Lyra shook her head. Something about the sound was too deliberate. Her instincts, honed by years of palace life, told her to hide. She motioned for Ethan to follow, leading him behind a stack of metal crates. Two figures stepped inside, their uniforms gleaming under the flickering light. Velantrian palace guards, Lyra's heart pounded. If they recognized her, she would be forced to return to the palace immediately. She would lose Ethan and the freedom she had just begun to taste. Ethan, sensing her fear, whispered, "Who are they? Are they dangerous?" "Guards. From my world," she said, her voice barely audible. He frowned. "Your world?" She realized she had to think fast. I'm just a worker from the upper city." She lied, keeping her voice steady. "I heard about this repair site and wanted to watch you work." Ethan nodded subtly, then stepped forward, pretending to inspect the hover engine. He blocked the guard's view of Lyra, keeping her hidden. The guards looked around suspiciously. "We heard a rumor someone from the palace was wandering the lower city," one said. "Have you seen anyone?" Ethan's hands moved as if working on the engine, deliberately ignoring them. "No one unusual. Just me, fixing machines like always." After a tense moment, the guards muttered to each other and left. Lyra exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. "Thank you," she whispered, gripping Ethan's arm. He gave her a small smile. "You don't have to thank me, just be careful." That night she returned to the palace with her mind racing. Her secret had come dangerously close to being discovered. Yet she couldn't ignore the pull in her heart. The bond she felt with Ethan was real, unlike any superficial respect or fear she had known among her own people. Over the following week, Lyra continued to sneak out, spending time with Ethan and helping him repair machines in the lower city. She learned about human ingenuity, how they solved problems with simple tools, cooperation, and determination. She also began helping others in the alleys. She shared what little food she carried, fixed small devices for street vendors, and assisted children who had broken toys. Though she remained in disguise, the gratitude she received was unlike any attention she had known. It was honest, heartfelt, and uncalculated. Ethan noticed her transformation. "You're different now," he said one evening. "You care about things you didn't before." "That's good." "I think I always cared," Lyra said softly. "But I never had the chance to act. No one gave me a reason." Ethan looked at her. "Sometimes the world gives you your reason. You just have to take it." Those words lingered in her mind as she returned to the palace each night. She knew she couldn't stay a beggar forever. Her responsibilities would eventually call her back, and Velantria's walls were thick with watchers. But for now she had discovered something priceless, the beauty of genuine human kindness. One night, as they worked together on a city generator, Ethan suddenly paused. "You're hiding something," he said. Lyra froze. Could he see through her disguise? I just don't know your full story," he continued gently. "I feel like there's more to you than meets the eye." Her heart raced. She had always feared this moment, the moment her secret might be revealed. But looking at him, she realized she didn't want to run anymore. She wanted to trust him even if it was risky. "I'm not who I appear to be," she admitted quietly. Ethan tilted his head, his eyes full of curiosity but not judgment. "Then who are you?" She took a deep breath. "I'm a princess of Velantria. I came here to see if kindness truly exists." Ethan blinked. Then slowly he smiled. "So you left a palace full of riches to find something real?" "Yes," she whispered. "I wanted to know if someone could care about me for me, not for my title or wealth, and you've shown me that." For a moment, the hum of machines and the distant city noises faded. Lyra and Ethan simply looked at each other, two souls from different worlds who had found a rare connection. "You could have just stayed in the palace," Ethan said softly. "But you chose this. To see the truth. I had to," she said. "I needed to know if genuine kindness existed, and I found it thanks to you." Ethan nodded. "Well, now you know. But you should be careful. People from your world, they wouldn't understand." Lyra smiled faintly. I know, but for the first time I don't feel afraid. I feel alive. As the twin suns of Velantria set casting a soft golden glow across the city, Lyra realized something profound. She had come to the lower city seeking truth, but she had also discovered herself. She wasn't just a princess. She was a girl capable of empathy, courage, and connection. And in Ethan, she had found the reflection of everything she longed for: honesty, compassion, and warmth. For the first time in her life, Lyra understood that wealth was meaningless without kindness, and that love and trust could exist beyond titles and power. But the palace in her world waited for her return. And with them came questions, challenges, and the possibility that her secret might not stay hidden for long. Lyra clutched her pendant tightly. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing. She would never forget the human who had shown her that genuine kindness could exist, and that it could change her life forever. The morning sun rose over Velantria's shining towers, casting long shadows across the streets and alleys. Princess Lyra Valen, still in her beggar's cloak, stood on a rooftop and gazed down at the city below. For days she had lived among the people, seen their struggles, and discovered something no palace could teach her. True kindness and honesty exist outside wealth and power. But today, she knew she could not remain hidden forever. Her absence had likely been noticed. The palace guards were diligent, and her father, Emperor Kalis, would not tolerate such a secret adventure. Lyra's heart was heavy. She had to decide: return to the life of royalty and duty, or step fully into the world she had come to love, even if it meant leaving her title behind. Before she could make her decision, she heard the familiar sound of footsteps approaching. It was Ethan. "You look worried," he said softly, leaning against the rooftop railing. "Everything okay?" Lyra shook her head. "No, my father will know I've been gone. The guards, they might come for me today." Ethan frowned. "Then we need a plan." "Where will you go if they do?" She sighed. "I don't know. I can't hide forever, but I can't stop caring about this city, about its people. I can't go back to just sitting in a palace surrounded by walls and orders." Ethan reached out and gently took her hand. "Then maybe you don't have to choose alone. We'll figure it out together." For the first time, Lyra felt the full weight of hope. With Ethan beside her, she realized she might not have to sacrifice one world for another. Later that morning, the palace sent a small squad of guards to search the lower city. They were precise, moving quickly through alleys and marketplaces. Lyra knew she couldn't avoid them forever. She decided to face the situation with courage. She met Ethan at the shelter one last time before returning to the palace. "I have to go back," she said quietly. "They will be looking for me, but I don't want to forget what I've learned." Ethan nodded. "Whatever happens, you've changed. You've seen something your people often miss. That real strength comes from kindness, not fear. Don't let them take that away." Lyra smiled faintly, touched by his words. "Thank you, Ethan, for everything." "You don't need to thank me," he said, gripping her hand once more. "Just promise me one thing. Don't let your world make you forget who you are." She nodded, her heart full. "I promise." The palace gates loomed ahead as she walked back through the lower city. Citizens passed her by without noticing the princess in rags, and for a moment, she felt a pang of sadness. She had grown fond of this freedom, the freedom to be herself without fear of judgment. When she arrived at the palace, the guards immediately recognized her. "Princess Lyra!" one shouted. "Where have you been? You've disappeared for days." Lyra held her head high. "I went to see my people," she said clearly, her voice steady. "I needed to understand them better." The guards exchanged confused glances. This was unusual for a princess. Normally, they only returned with explanations carefully written by her tutors. Word quickly reached Emperor Kalis. The throne room was quiet when she entered, the massive golden doors closing behind her. The Emperor's eyes, usually sharp and cold, studied her closely. "You left the palace without permission," he said. "Tell me why." Lyra took a deep breath. "Father, I needed to see the world outside these walls. I wanted to understand the lives of our people. I needed to see if true kindness existed, and I have found it. Not from wealth or status, but from those who care for others without expectation." Kalis raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "And you think this justifies leaving your responsibilities?" "I think it teaches me how to be a better leader," Lyra replied. I've learned that fear and orders are not enough to earn respect. Compassion, understanding, and empathy are what make people trust and follow you willingly." The Emperor paused. He had never heard such honesty from his daughter. There was no flattery, no attempt to justify her actions with clever words. Only truth, and this kindness you speak of, he said slowly. Where did you find it? Lyra smiled faintly. Among those you consider ordinary, father. Among humans and citizens who care not for power, but for each other. There was one in particular, a human named Ethan, who showed me that the simplest gestures can change a life. Kalis was silent. For the first time he seemed to reflect rather than command. You risked much, he said finally. You could have been harmed, and yet you brought back knowledge no tutor could teach you. Lyra nodded. I understand the risks, father, but I would do it again. I could not live knowing there was more to life that I refused to see. The Emperor studied her for a long moment. Then, with a slow nod, he said, Perhaps you are right. There is wisdom in seeing the world as it truly is, not just as we command it to be. But tell me, what will you do now? Return to the palace life or stay among those you've learned to love? Lyra's heart leapt. This was the moment she had prepared for. She could be herself fully and still honor her heritage. I will remain a princess, she said softly. But I will also serve my people, not just rule them. I will use my position to bring the kindness I've seen to all of Velantria. And I will continue to see Ethan, to learn from him and from the humans. Kalis's eyes softened. Then perhaps Velantria will become stronger than I ever imagined. Not through wealth, but through the hearts of its people. A few days later, Lyra returned to the lower city, this time openly. She wore her princess attire, but her smile was genuine, not forced. The citizens recognized her, but there was no fear in her eyes, only respect earned through understanding and care. Ethan was waiting, repairing a small street generator. He looked up in surprise as she approached, now revealed as the princess. You're really her, he said softly. Lyra laughed lightly. I never lied about my heart, Ethan, I only hid my face. But now you see me fully. Ethan smiled, a mix of admiration and warmth in his eyes. I'm glad. But why come here like this? Because this is where I learned the truth, Lyra said. This is where I found what really matters. And now I want to help others feel the same kindness that you showed me. He nodded, clearly moved. Then let's make it happen. Together. From that day forward, Lyra worked in both worlds. By day, she was the princess of Velantria, attending councils and managing the empire. By evening, she returned to the lower city, helping repair systems, feed the needy, and teach her people the lessons she had learned from humans like Ethan. Slowly, Velantria began to change. The citizens felt her genuine care, and her father, observing her courage and honesty, began to understand the value of compassion over control. And through it all, Ethan remained at her side, a reminder that true kindness knows no boundaries of species, wealth, or status. Lyra often thought back to the first night she met him, a stranger in the rain. That night had changed her life forever. She had left the comfort of her palace, risking everything, to find the truth about human kindness. And in doing so, she had discovered a world richer than any treasure, a world full of warmth, connection, and love that could not be bought. As Velantria's twin suns set once more, casting a golden glow over the city, Lyra smiled, finally at peace. She had chosen her path, a path that embraced both her heritage and her humanity, guided by the simple, powerful truth that kindness is the greatest gift one can give or receive. And somewhere in the lower city, Ethan smiled back at her, silently sharing the promise that no matter their worlds, they had found a bond that could never be broken.